All right, Darren, before we go on to what you're doing currently, work-wise, and the specific questions about tipping service, that sort of thing, you had to speak to a trainer each day for a William Hill radio.
Yes.
And one of the trainers, two questions here. Did
Yep.
you make notes on how many actually told you the truth? And secondly, you struck up a special relationship with Martin Pipe.
Yeah.
Now, Martin Pipe was notoriously cagey. So tell us briefly about that relationship.
So, how many trainers told me the truth? I don't. Most of them were pretty good. Because I had to do it. I mean, obviously, didn't work 7 days a week, but it was mainly my job when I was in to get an interview, and you sort of learn the trainers who were very good. I used to ring Steve Gollings up a hell of a lot because he had a horse called Royal Shakespeare who was trying to win. There was Order of Merit series at the time, and Royal Shakespeare was running almost every week, and Royal Shakespeare did win it, and he sort of before he was going to run his final race of the season, oh, we're going to have a party, you should come because you've been speaking to me so often. But he was great. It was great to deal with, and he was just the sort of right thing. So you learn the trainers who were quite good. And who were sort of saying some interesting things, and as well as it going out on William Hill on the internet and the radio, I would transcribe it to go out on CFAX. And the Martin Pipe. So before I joined, they would talk to Martin around the big festivals. I believe it was because his dad had sold his betting shops to William Hill, so there was a bit of an affiliation there. It was a little bit before my time, but I know obviously he was a bit prickly with the press for certain reasons. But he was, I was like, obviously Martin Pope was the biggest trainer at the time, and one of the guys said, right, okay, it's your job to phone Martin. Like blimey, I was quite nervous. But he was always a real pleasure to chat to. He was very good with his time, and there's a couple of stories. So there was one time, it's the November meeting at Cheltenham, or whatever it was called back then. It's changed so often over the years. And obviously it was a meeting he used to do very well at. And before the interview starts, he goes, oh, what do you fancy in this race? I thought, that's a bit of a strange question for him to ask me. And I said, oh, I quite like John Joe O'Neill's. He's like, basically said his horse would win. I was like, oh. So it was already favourite at the time of right. But basically, I can't remember these specific words, but it was basically telling me he would win. I mean, this is, God knows how many people Martin Pipe has told the horse has win. Probably not very many. And given that I wasn't earning a great wage at the time, so I didn't have a great deal of money, but I probably should have got as much money as I could. I didn't have a massive bet on it. I don't know why. It's definitely a regret because it did win. It wasn't a huge price, but it's like, yeah, I was like, Martin Pipe just told me he's going to train a winner. It's like, what have I done? And the other one was, may remember a horse called Punter, and he ran in the Grand National one year, and Martin had sent a couple of horses to school at Exeter. One of them may have been Well Chief, possibly, I can't, but there was one high profile horse and there was another horse who wasn't named. Well, it turned out it was Punter, and he'd backed it for the Grand National, and he basically, he said, oh, quite fancy, it was that massive price, backed at 100 to 1. And he was like, oh, do you want some of my hundreds? Sort of, didn't really know what to say. I was like, oh, I'll just have a couple of quid or whatever. Obviously, He actually finished sixth. Given it hadn't run for ages, and he actually run pretty well. Barry Garrity rode it, and okay, it didn't win, but again, it was just like I couldn't believe that he was prepared to share this information with me, given his prickly to the press. But yeah, I got on really well with it. Like he obviously probably unlikely to remember me, but I remember those conversations.
I'll keep trying to get him to do an interview. So if you're watching this, Martin,
yeah, that would it'd be great. I mean, he did one with Racing TV, didn't he? Which was a great watch. He's like, yeah, he was really nice to me. So I've always remembered that.
Right, we've got 10 minutes left, so we're going to talk about your tipping.
Yeah.
Because you are, unashamedly a tipster. You get paid customers, and you do very well at it. You are a family man. You mentioned before it's difficult. You're working 5 days a week. With this, what your current job is working with Ladbrokes as a producer.
Yeah, producer. Yeah.
So, how do you find juggling? It's all encompassing this game, isn't it? You know, even when you're on your day off, you quite wish you were. So how do you juggle it?
I mean, I rarely seem to have a day off. I mean, sometimes the wife issues I had with having a day off. You know, it's like she goes, "Oh, you're not doing anything." I was like, "No, I've got a preview to write, or whatever." It's like, but I think it's one of, obviously I did touch on it earlier. It's one of the reasons why I don't have the time to focus on all racing, and hunter chases means that there is a very specific time of the season. I do wish we still had the higher numbers, but and I hope they don't continue to go down, but it helps. I sort of mentioned my youngest son is disabled. It's a bit easier now he's gone to school, because obviously we were having to care for him quite a lot. He was born in 2019, so obviously when COVID hit, we were at home with him quite a lot. So obviously he needs to be, his final feed in the evening is through a tube, so it's milk through a tube up his nose into his tummy. So if I'm at work, then my wife obviously has to do everything. So when I'm at home, I will try and take over these roles to help her out. So because she's got a crochet business which she does from home as well. So she's trying to do work as well. So if I've been working in early, so I'll get home 5:30, whatever, and then send the kids to bed, and then or send my eldest to bed, and then I will feed my youngest, and then it'd be like, okay, then we'll have something to eat, and then it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I was like, well, I've got a preview to write. So it can be hard to try and to juggle it all in. I do a commute to work, so I will sort of use the train journey between Euston and Milton Keynes. Sometimes betting or racing posts can be blocked on the Wi-Fi, which is obviously frustrating because sometimes that limits me. Football, obviously, if I'm doing football previews, it can be a bit easier. But even stuff like Odds Checker can be blocked. So if I'm checking prices, and obviously that could be a bit tricky as well. But I'll sort of, I can use that half hour, 45 minutes that I'm on the train for, where I can bash out some previews there. But yeah, it is tough, and it's sort of one of the reasons why I do try and specialise. But yeah, sometimes I think I could be up to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning writing previews, because it's the only time that I've got to do them.
Okay, you've also mentioned that you take it to heart that you don't want the people that subscribe to you, which is correct. Obviously, you'd have thought most tipsters would be, but you take it to heart if you're losing, they're losing. So how do you deal with it mentally if you have a bad run, or you're in a bad run?
It's hard. It is hard. I mean, there was one hunter chase season. It took me 13 races to find a winner, and it feels like you could go for, if you went through that sort of run midway through the season after you've already done very well, it's easier to take. When you're starting the season off and you can't find a winner for 13 races, like you're just desperate for a winner, because you're already trying to make up ground. The first season I went paid on non-league football, I actually made a loss. And Anti-Post made a profit, but the profit wasn't enough to cover the loss of the matches. And I was like, this is typical. Like the first year I've gone paid, it's not gone well. It felt like a real battle the whole season. Like it started off quite well, and then I had a couple of really bad months, and then I had a good month, and then it would go, and it was just like it's like almost like I was in treacle trying to climb back up to a profit all the time. I almost didn't enjoy it, because again, I'm losing money. The people who pay me are losing money. I still put stuff up for free on Punters Lounge as well, so that there are people who obviously follow me who don't, for whatever reason, want to subscribe, still can benefit from what I put up there. And it was just a horrible season. And anti-post wise, there were a couple of really bad beats as well. I backed to Cabango Shimonga to be top goal scorer at 40-1 in the National League, and he's miles clear and going to walk it, and he picked up a really bad injury in February and missed the rest of the season. He was still placed. That's how far clear he was. He was still placed. And if he'd have won at 40-1, I'd have been in profit. I backed Farnborough to win their league at 40-1. They should have won it, but still finished place. But they should have won. If they'd have won, I'd have been in even more profit. And it was just those two, and to go with all the matches as well. And so I said to my subscribers, I reduced the fee. I said, look, you've lost money this year. Because I'd done so well the year before, and obviously the people who subscribed would probably followed me when I was free, and as I said earlier, I made over 100 points. I said, if you balance it out, if I hadn't have done so well last year, say I'd only won 60 points, and then I'd carried the 50 points over that was extra to this season, then we would have been in profit. So it was almost like things were balancing out a little bit. The season after, I made a small profit, matches, but the anti-post was absolutely superb. It was staggering. One of my posts went viral because I'd mentioned about a bet I had 6 of the 7 winners in 5-fold, 6-fold, and the each way 7-fold, and sort of did very well out of that myself. I don't tip up specifically multiple bets, but when you're talking about anti-post football, a lot of people like doing the multiple. So there was that side, and then this season has gone much better on the match betting, and I think it was over 40 points up. So I'm on a happier level now. But yeah, that first season going paid, that was tough, and it's hard because people are losing money, and that's the last thing I want people to do, because they are investing their hard-earned in what I do.
You mentioned personally, so what sort of level is your personal punting, and have you ever considered going professional?
There is no way I could go professional. There just isn't there aren't enough hunter chases, and there aren't enough. Yeah, okay, non-league football, but I wouldn't be able to get enough money on. Legal wise, there isn't enough means. There's something called the Asian markets in non-league football, and I think there are people that punt into Asian betting firms that do move the non-league market, and you'll see quite big moves, and it's clearly people putting large sums of money on through these Asian bookmakers. That's not something I personally have ever done. I'm not a massive staking punter. I'd obviously be bigger than average, but it's not huge. But I still find hunter chases I'm fine getting money on, but non-league football is quite tough. I think with the horses, because I don't really punt on horses through the rest of the season, so I'll maybe go under the radar a little bit.
I used to.
Well, yeah, maybe not so much that, but I think, they're almost. I'm not really denting too much into their profits per se. I mean, obviously did very well at Cheltenham because I did clean up a little bit, but that doesn't always. You're only looking at one race a day usually, and not every day. So, and I've stopped trying to take, unless it's the Cheltenham or the Stratford meetings where I will have done the work and will bet. If I see any ricks, I will necessarily take them. I've stopped trying to take those ricks because I know that's what obviously bookies are looking for. So I'm trying to. I want to keep my accounts basically, but non-league football it's tough. It's step 3, so we're talking like the Northern Premier, the Southern Premiers, and the Isthmian League. Not all bookies price them up to start with, so you're already limited. Then there are some bookmakers I can only get pennies on, so it's pointless. And if I want, I stake between 1 and 5 points. If I want a 3 or 4, or even a 5, 5 points are very rare, but if I want that on a step 3 game, that is very hard for me to get on.
And what would 5 points be for you? Can you tell us? Or
I don't like to say, look, it's not a huge amount, but I don't like to say because I know everyone's different. And there are people who will be following me who will stake more than I do, and there'll be people following me who will stake less than I do, and it's what you feel comfortable with. And I'm at the level where I feel comfortable. Could I stake more? Yes, possibly, but then I would find it harder to get on if I up the stake again. And I stick very rigidly to how much per point I want on. So yeah, it's a case of I could go higher. I could probably go a bit higher with the racing, but the football like I say, it's got to the level the National League, I do use Betfair a bit more. The exchange, certainly this season I have, and so that does help spread the money around. Even though the liquidity isn't huge, it means but very often there'll be, sometimes it's 4 or 5 bookmakers that I've had the bet with.
Just finally, then you said earlier on in this piece that you're not very good at advertising yourself. So if people have watched this and they are interested in subscribing, you've got a website, or how do they get in contact?
Yeah, it's not web. I just really do it through Twitter, which is just Darran Pearce, and because of the way my name is spelled, that is quite easy to find because it's AN, not EN. And usually I'll just post at the sort of, at the beginning or just before the beginning of each of the non-league season, and then obviously the Hunter Chase season. I obviously do a combination. I do have people who obviously sign up to both, so I do an offer for that as well. But yeah, I sort of put it up there and then don't. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because I don't know. It's just I don't want to drag too much attention to it. As in, I just have that thing where a lot of people get negative about people who charge for tips. And I sort of don't necessarily want to attract that business, and just sort of, fortunately, my followers tend to be quite good on that front.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for your time. Darran Pearce, thank you very much.
Thank you.